So welcome everybody. We'll keep it in English because of our guests. And this is the first lecture in our series at the Photography Department, specialization in the BA. And for this year we have like long program, as you know. And I'm happy to introduce you FYTA, which means the plants, and Phil and Thibaut. Actually, they write FYTA always in capital because it's a reference to Valley Export, but maybe this is a detail. And they are based actually between Athens, London and Berlin. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. They are like a performance tool. You're gonna see that they're a performance tool, and they do also music and different crazy stuff. And maybe I can also invite you next week if you are in Geneva, or after, or in the next 3 weeks. They're gonna have a show, a group show, where I'm also participating in the BAC Bâtiment Art Contemporain in Le Common is the name of the space. Yeah, and they're gonna perform also there, and me myself something like in this costume. I don't know yet. Yeah, but. Let's enjoy FYTA.
Any questions? Right. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the title we have?
Oh, about the title.
Dismantling Ambiguity, the FYTA Guide to Post-Identity Totalitarianism.
I would like to say some things about the title. We firmly stand behind Leibach's statement, according to which art and totalitarianism are not mutually exclusive. We built a discourse that is contradictory and discontinuous without being ambiguous. Ambiguity is our enemy. Contradiction is our aim. We suggest a methodology today for all of you to follow. Our methodology aspires to create bad art that is vicious, self-defeating, self-hating, and basically art that is beyond criticism, a quality that you might all use in your careers. We've implemented it, and we've landed in some interesting venues around the world. Art, according to our methodology, should be beyond good and bad taste. Art should be beyond revolutionary politics. Art should be beyond fascism. It should be natural art and essentially artificial art. That's what I had to say about the title of our presentation.
Thank you. And I think that was,
Huh?
you get a sense of what we're doing here. This is us. We usually operate like this, as two people. Although you can see clearly that there is a union.
We've split since that performance.
We like to split often though, yeah. We've had 4 different formations and we split more than 4 times. I don't know how that works, but it works like this.
I personally don't identify as member of the FYTA duo at the moment.
We're not too sure about. It's important. I don't know how many of you actually saw the first slide, but it's important to say that, with all scientific respect, we are in a very difficult position to show you our work today, because Mercury is in retrograde, an astrological effect which has huge consequences to our star sign, which is the same, which is the star sign of Gemini, ruled by Mercury. And so it is very, very difficult for us to make any sort of sense. What is it that we do then?
What is it?
Okay, we've put together for you some PowerPoint slides. We love PowerPoint. PowerPoint is a wonderful methodology of information, and we will follow PowerPoint today.
I won't follow the PowerPoint.
He will not follow the PowerPoint because he has significant dyslexia, and that makes it really difficult for him to follow.
I really want the audience to follow what we have to say. I really do. So I will try to maybe explain a couple of bullet points in the end.
So we started in 2012, and we wanted to question what does it mean to create radical creativity in 2012, obviously, because we started in 2012, but also today. How can we create radical works? And especially in the spirit of what seemed to be the Greek creative revolution. You might have seen a lot of lifestyle magazines saying, "Oh, it's they might be poor, but they are, there's a booming scene, and they're very creative, and look, there is
crisis brings up so much.
Crisis brings solutions. You have this lady, and she has a shop, and through the shop that is funded by local children, she produces works that are, of magnificent significance. So
that's another methodological gesture. You should try being poor for a while. And
actually, yeah. I mean, maybe here we can do like some
workshop,
poverty workshops.
Yeah.
They would be, I think, quite useful. But the most problematic thing we found is this notion that there was a return to nature. There was very much the discussion around the commons. You might have heard the discussions also here to do with water and who water belongs to, and so on. So there was a lot of art that tried to, bring back the notions of nature as an important concept. But we were very skeptical of all this.
And there was a convergence with certain tendencies in leftist and radical politics in general, and an affinity to the idea of the multitude from Negri and Hart. All those are quite common in throughout art and creative scenes in Europe right now.
Yeah. So how do we respond to this notion of the natural order and to maybe creating something which can be radical and so on? And I think what is important for us to say as a sort of starting point, and before we go into our methodology, because it might seem to you so far as we've discussed, that we might not actually talk about our methodology and work, but we will. So
We are actually.
We are actually, yeah, no, but I mean we will in a rather more, specific way. So,
We have a PowerPoint.
yeah. So, is what we're doing conceptual art? They ask us we did a thing at the Biennale, and some people ask this question, and I think no. The answer is no, because conceptual art is about ideas, they say, and it's about ideas being more important than the process, they say. But we like the process. We think the process is really good. So we are not really conceptual artists, but we like processes. But what kind of artists we are, we will look at in a minute.
What are we? Oh, that's
your PowerPoint slide, and
Oh
I'm
my God.
very happy if you manage to go through this.
Can you help me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so as you might have gathered, we are interested in an anti-methodological methodology. We have a love and hate relationship with structures, rules, something else.
Identification.
Yeah, identity in general. So clarity is clearly not a central issue in our work.
No.
Clarity, no, we don't like clarity.
What
but
about medium? What medium do we do?
we don't really do a medium.
Right. How do we sell what we do?
We don't really sell what we do.
So how do we make money?
We have other jobs.
Yeah, but isn't that really a problem? Like, people want to be full-time artists.
I don't know, but I really want to know this answer one day.
Maybe you can sell performance. It's not so difficult. Is what we do performance?
That's the problem. That's the problem. If I wanted to sell what we do as a marketer,
He's actually he has a past of marketing. It's a real story.
I would have a difficulty selling that. It's the only sellable bit of what we do is our branding,
Yeah.
which was like really accidental as well, but apparently became something that's out of our control.
Yeah. But branding is good, no?
It's.
I mean, half of art is branding, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. As a totalitarian practice, I totally support branding.
And tell us a little bit about your relationship to language.
It's a perplexed topic.
Give us the simple version.
I can't write and read very well, but that was like really necessary for me to be able to kind of bring that in a public domain through writing and reading in public, because I think it's important to introduce this kind of different relationship to ability and to language itself. And like language impurity is a very kind of how you say
Can you tell us what language impurity is?
yeah, so like language is
Can language be pure?
It never. It's by definition a hybridic construction, because it has to do with subjectivity. So in a way, the only way you can have it is by misunderstanding each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the only way we can communicate?
Yeah. If we understood each other, we would like kill each other.
Okay.
So if we misunderstand each other, we are able to coexist. It's not me, it's Freud.
Okay, for sure.
So but like many institutions try to impose language impurity. Like in German language, you have like the idea of Hochdeutsch. In Greek, you have this idea that there is a continuity from ancient Greece to modern Greece, and this is like something very special you need to preserve and you need to protect language. For example, like many people use the Latin alphabet to communicate in Greek. It's called Greeklish.
Yeah, the Greeklish is an interesting phenomenon. It's when the internet came up.
Yeah.
there was a need for Greeks to be able to type things, but quickly to change between languages. So changing the alphabet was kind of a burden. So a language came up where you can type Greek words, but using a Latin alphabet. But also it uses like things like there's the letter called FYTA, and that is, some people use an 8 for that. Yeah. So it was a sort of impure language that came up, and we like to use that. You write poetry in that language.
I do, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is that there was this really vicious campaign against Greeklish, because Greeklish will kill the language.
Greeklish, yeah. It's
and then
neologism.
But the language only survives if it's alive, and we believe that these mutations are what's the most interesting aspect.
And can you tell us something about your relationship to low and high culture?
My relationship to I'm mainly like
low,
mainly high culture person. I don't like trash. I don't like camp. I don't like messiness. But like it's a really. What do you think is my relationship to the low and high?
You have a very particular relationship to low and high, I find, because I think you are someone with a really low aesthetic, but with a really high sense of concept. So I'm not too sure how exactly you live with that.
How can you say that?
How can you live with that? How can you live with that? Really?
It's torturing, tormenting me.
Really. Come on, like kitsch is an understatement. You have an incredibly bad taste. But you have read so many books. What's the deal there? Hasn't modernism at all got into you? You know modernism?
I know modernism.
Yeah, 1940s.
I do like
That's at its peak.
I know. It's a very interesting period.
Mm-hmm.
I study about it a lot.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, bringing those things together is really fascinating, isn't it? What about over-identification?
What about over-identification? I don't know how many people in here know Leibach. Leibach is a part of a collective called the Neuslovensches Kunst, which is by some thought to be the last kind of political avant-garde in a way. They create works that are at the same time politically progressive and imposingly fascistic, one can say.
Yeah.
And
both claims are quite dubious.
Both claims are dubious, but also both claims are valid. And Slavoj Žižek coined this term to start really unpack a little bit what this group does. And it is the term of over-identification. So, what is over-identification? I'm trying to think how to explain it simply. I mean, okay, I'll give an example. So let's say, for example, you can tell me if that's over-identification or not, because I don't think I've told you my example. You can press yeah. But do it. You won't tell me if you press it if it's right or wrong. Okay.
I will press it either way.
Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So let's say you're somewhere found in a situation where someone is saying something really racist. Okay. For example, maybe in Switzerland. You are in the bus stop and someone says something really racist. So there are different ways in which you can react to this. One way is the, cultural reformist way, where you say, "Why did you say that? I don't think that's a very nice thing to say." And have you actually met those people? And you start engaging in discussion, and you kind of slowly move the people out of their position.
The transformative approach.
The mildly transformative approach. Now, Žižek claims that kind of thing doesn't actually do anything anymore. So how do you do it? You tell them, yeah, and not only they steal, but also they fly. I've seen one. So you kind of make it. You take the language of racism and you magnify it to such an extent that essentially you feed the racists their own poison, until the point that it becomes so magnified that the systemic thought itself is destroyed. So this is the notion of over-identification.
Yeah.
Would you say that I nailed it more or less with my example?
It's, I mean, it's really hard to change the context, because when we refer to like an art practice, there's always like a very, well-framed context in a way.
I'll mention the other example, the work by Schlingensief.
Okay.
Christoph Schlingensief, a German theater director, made this piece in 2000, which was called Ausländer raus. A very difficult piece. It was in the main square of Vienna, where he placed a container in which he put inside. It was 2000. Okay, so think 2000, Big Brother. That whole reality TV thing was at its peak, really. And he took a container and he placed inside asylum seekers, which you could vote in and out of the country. Now, why did he do that? Because Austria at the time was the first country that actually had a coalition with an extreme right party officially. That was 2000. Now it's 2015, it seems that all European countries are like this. But let's say that back then it was something that doesn't happen often. So not only it happened, but the European Union posed sanctions to Austria, that this is not something that should happen, and so on. And the Austrian people were upset. Why are they posing sanctions to us? So what he did is he thought, okay, you want it to be this way. Okay, let's have it this way then. So he put together this work which magnified things to a really large extent. And it was interesting that he had reactions both from the right, who, thought, oh, that's really bad for the image of Austria, but also from the left, who thought that's not a good thing to do, because you are, you shouldn't say Ausländer aus, really. It's a really bad thing to say. So they ended up breaking it. He congratulated them for breaking the installation. He then put it up again. There's a fascinating documentary that I would really recommend anybody who has remotely an interest on activism and art. You should watch. It's really quite fantastic. Also in terms of the relationship between art and European history at the moment. It's really, really quite important. But anyway, some of that stuff is discussed in the article called "Always Choose the Worst Option: Artistic Resistance and the Strategy of Over-Identification" by a series of architects called Bavo. Now, architects usually I don't rate very highly, but these particular architects are quite good actually, and they're very self-critical of functionalism and so on.
Oh.
Finally, we're going into a little bit of what we do,
which is it's hard to locate within the over-identification practice, because it shares commonalities but also kind of diverges on some aspects. So
would you like to describe a little bit that work that we did in Berlin last year?
The Glühbirne.
Yeah. Based on an awful pun. We were dressed as pears, which spread the light of Europe. It was a mixture of political activism and totalitarian aesthetics, essentially. And that's where I guess the part of over-identification comes in. But also, as you might have guessed, in terms of how we are presenting the work today, that's a similar sort of thing. But should we go a little bit into psychoanalysis now?
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
If you're ready for that.
If you're ready for that, he loves Jacques Lacan. Now,
I too.
Jacques Lacan is a really important theorist.
He's my boyfriend.
He's his secret boyfriend.
But the thing is that when we say psychoanalysis, there are so many kind of schools of psychoanalysis, and this distinction I put up here is kind of very telling in terms of the history of psychoanalysis in relation to art, maybe. So we have like one school of psychoanalysis developed and thrived in America, in US, that it was telling people basically that, there are all these tendencies in yourself, your unconscious want to destroy you, so you need to learn how to tame your unconscious. Just like put some rules, be normal, like suppress your unconscious, like catastrophic tendencies, and you will be happy.
So happiness has to do with suppressing contradiction. So happiness has to do with making sense, with a linear narrative, a point A to point B. You know, you go to school and you learn how to. First of all, you have to learn how to paint. How are you going to be an artist? So you learn how to paint, and you learn how to do things properly and graphically, and then slowly, you know, you learn how to paint more freely.
I don't know how to paint though.
Yeah, and after you paint more freely, then you learn how to be more conceptual and so on. So this is a kind of linear way of understanding things. Whereas this linear way of understanding things would be, but I want to do this which I'm really good at, and this that I'm really not good at the same time. Okay, so someone like Lacan would say, yeah, that's the right way of dealing with things.
No.
Wouldn't he?
No. Look, so the French psychoanalysis says that the only way to kind of get some kind of understanding of yourself is by destroying the imaginary formation of yourself, all these normative kind of like set of rules. And
so even every craft, every ability, everything you have to actually destroy.
I think Lacan really loves crafty things, but that's not the point. We can like depart from his approach to art, I guess. But so in his okay, I will try to give an account of this in terms of ideology, because we are dealing with ideology when we talk about political art. We are dealing with like dominant ideologies and how you deal with them. In your examples, there is a dominant ideology of racism, and you have different responses, like that you can kind of try to dismantle it in a way. So, is that relevant?
How would you want to describe to us, Jacques, Lacan's dismantling of the self, or is that too involved for now?
Maybe I would like to attempt. If you see that it's not going anywhere, just like stop.
Okay, all right, go on.
So in order for contemporary power to function properly, unlike the traditional understanding of power that is kind of suppressing you by basically like punishing you all the time and like putting you in your place, there is this new modality of power, a power that admits that is basically dysfunctional or not quite powerful. You know, power showing its weakness.
Imagine
like Syriza.
Do
you follow like this the Greek discourse?
The American president,
like George Bush.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm stupid. I tell you that. I don't know politics. I don't know foreign politics. Mm-hmm. But vote for me because I admit it.
And therefore, if I'm admitted, that must only be a good thing.
But then you vote for Bush and he invades countries.
Yeah.
So power is actually very materially kind of similar to the previous.
And can I interject in terms of how power now has also a little bit about the thing to do with our thought that I wanted to mention, how power is spreading through different channels in a way nowadays. I don't know how many of you know Antonin Artaud. He's a theater practitioner from Surrealist France. And he in a book called The Theater of and the Theater and Its Double, he writes, he suggests that words are not enough to express trauma. He was interested in the traumatic experience. Okay, he's also, you know, a practitioner in a very very traumatic point in human history. So I would say that what we do is the Facebook generation take on trauma. So what is Facebook trauma? Facebook trauma is scrolling and seeing all these things, a lot of information, you know, very hurtful, happy, hurtful, sad, irrelevant, happy, hurtful, happy, stupid, irrelevant, hurtful, more hurtful. The more refugees are coming in, more and more hurtful, and it just builds like this. Okay, so how can you deal with that in words? How can you deal with that in anything really? And this is what we're struggling with, in a way, this back and forth of structures of power. I mean, we are. I'm gonna do a zoom out here, and we're here and to talk to you, and we're gonna have questions afterwards. That's quite important, and we are doctors, yeah. It's at least this is what we try.
I'm a semi-doctor.
He's a semi-doctor, and we have awards. These always come with us. Someone gave them to us, and it's our Nobel Prize for good art, and we're trying to find some kind of communication, but it's a really difficult process because it is now a difficult process, and that's it.
We bring Artaud inside this conversation because for us embodiment is really important in a way. For us, this kind of critique is not purely intellectual enterprise.
Actually, I wouldn't say it's intellectual at all. I would say
it is a little bit intellectual.
It is a little bit intellectual, but it's mostly, I would say it's mostly embodied. And I think it's important to say that we didn't send you, for example, a paper, and we didn't sit down and read a paper. We are, performing it. So embodiment is important, right?
I don't know.
So this is the way we operate. We have created a map. We love maps, science maps, Scientology, star signs, everything.
All kinds of science.
All kinds of science. We love it. So we have actually created a map of how we operate. So we have from discourse to embodiment.
At this point, I would like to
from low culture to high culture. Can I just say that he is a master of graphics, and he created this beautiful, absolutely beautiful work, which when I first saw, I was like, wow, you overdid yourself, really. So we have these arrows, and then we have 4 boxes. And every time we want to create a work, we choose one element from each one, and we bring them together, and then we create the work. It's important to say that this is a rule that we don't always follow. So generally, the rule is that we take all 4 of them and we make a work.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't. So we take 3 or 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means that is exactly the point of what we do. We take methodology really seriously. We have it always in our minds, but we don't always follow it. Okay, and that is our little psychoanalytic attempt to get out of the modernism versus postmodernism dilemma. I'm not going to go into that further, but if you want afterwards, when we have a discussion, we can bring that up, and we can bring up some imaginary artworks that you come up with,
yes.
And we would be very proud, because it would be like you are our conceptual children if you actually put together some ideas of how we can combine some of that stuff to create new things.
But if you actually make them afterwards, you would need to pay some for the rights.
How are we doing for time, Sophia?
Let me check.
The water is called silence. There's nothing
Which
else.
is like really conceptual, isn't it?
You have until 6, another 20 minutes.
Oh.
So,
before we go to that,
yeah.
I would like to say something more about the over-identification process.
Okay, but we have 20 minutes and 2 more things. But
Okay.
So go on. Yeah, 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, ready?
Yeah.
Let me.
So, usually over-identification states that we need to take power more seriously than power takes itself. So, if cynical power says, oh, it doesn't matter, anything you vote is the same, you should be like, voting is the ultimate purpose of the contemporary political subject, or something like that. But we are not quite doing that. We're fascinated by the ambiguity of this, of the function of power, and we very often try to replicate this by being, we are not artists, You cannot critique us. We're not artists. And people like really have little to say against this. So we are basically becoming this totalitarian, like postmodern
ambiguity,
monstrous like celebrities. And that's a shame, but it's useful for the society to go.
I mean, it's not so useful financially. We don't actually make any money with it.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. But it's. I mean, when we did a series of works at the last Athens Biennale, which we will go into afterwards.
Yeah.
There was a reviewer from Art Forum, and she said that out of the whole thing, that they are the worst artists, and I love them very much for that. So we were very happy, actually, that someone said, "You are not artists. This is not good." I'm just going to interject a little bit about my background. I'm going to have a little internal meltdown. I'm going to say that I did a PhD in poetics. I spent 12 years of my life thinking about how things in aesthetics work. Why did I do that?
It's an interesting topic.
Pages and pages and pages of so much Jakobson. What was going on? And then I met him, and he said, I'd like to make songs, but I can't sing. And he really can't sing. Like, not at all.
It's an exaggeration.
It's not an exaggeration, like, not at all. And we started making, I said, okay. So I started playing the keyboard, because we started as a kind of band. And then he started singing, and all the right concepts were there, but none of the technique. It was completely missing. It was almost as if I took someone from outside of culture, of any culture, Western, Eastern, or any mixture of it, and I placed them in a room, and I said, "Now do it." And he really did it. And that for me was such a relief. And I think this is quite an important thing to say, that one of the things that we deal with is this attempt to find kind of group peace in terms of structure and non-structure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Form and non-form and all these things. And in terms of how we've worked, we've done all sorts of different media. Like we make songs and we do performances. His recent thing is that he wants to be like a marble sculptor.
Yeah.
Like he cannot draw a single straight line, but he has this belief that he should be that.
It is my dream. It's not a belief.
Yeah, after being a singer, graphic designer, architect, it's like every week he has like a different dream, which is a wonderful state to be in. So we organized a series of what we call situationist burlesques in the Athens Biennale. Now the thing about this biennial was that it had what they call the rhizomatic curation, so the Deleuzian term of one person was inviting another person who was inviting another person who was inviting, and then it opened up as a tree. It had a really open kind of curation, which is not common for biennales, but we thought was interesting. So instead of actually presenting our work, we just invited loads of people to take part with us.
We took it seriously again.
We sort of took the rules seriously and actually did it. And that's when a lot of interesting things started coming up, because working on our own, it's kind of easier to be in this sort of slightly weirder political place. But what if we want to work with other people, and what if we want to actually communicate and actually collaborate and actually do political work, which is in collaboration with others?
Imagine like a starting point for the whole project is a very kind of firm anti-institutional critique. And then we are like curating artists within a biennial, and also by maintaining persona of a very kind of celebrity kind of artist.
So we went in there and we sort of tried to destroy it as much as we could. It was in a really wonderful building. It was the old stock market, so it was made to be destroyed, really.
Yeah.
And so we just invited lots of different people to just take over and do a lot of different things. And so this is a piece where we invited a lot of people to make portraits of us, and then we posed with them. And there was a text in which it was what was referring on the text was how the viewer of the work can only really hate us in a way, because we're so narcissistic that this is the only healthy way you can really react to this artwork. But by already telling the viewer to do that, again, we didn't really allow for that to happen in a way. So we created these multiple things that were happening. I mean, I don't know to what extent you get an idea from this. This was another performance that was done in collaboration with a researcher from Norway who makes work to do with philosophy of science, where she was basically creating an aerobics school for philosophical terms. So you were doing aerobics while you can learn a lot about 20th century philosophy and so on. So there were a lot of different things that were happening at the same time. Sometimes something would be very emotionally involving, and sometimes not at all, would be completely cynical. So it was this sort of absolute circus, basically, of different things that were happening at the same time.
But in terms of the investment and the separation between the persona and the real life, and the separation between your political aspiration, what you actually do, it was messy. Of course, it was a week of like where we were supposed to perform for at least 8 hours per day, and at the same time organize things with other people.
Yeah,
so many people hated us.
Many people hated us, and there were
our collaborators, not the audience. The audience
also our collaborators, yeah. And there was that's when we invented a term called enemy art, which is basically how to alienate people and make enemies. There was, especially at that point, which was the Friday in the week, it was for us so such an out-of-body experience that you have significant gaps, he doesn't actually remember performances that we did. So it's the moment where conceptual art finds the absolute kind of ecstatic psychoanalytic moment of Artaud and just becomes this self-destructive thing. So because we don't have much more time, I just want to say one small thing. This is not so much exactly the kind of work we do, but just to give you a concept of where we are at the moment. From the event that we did in the Biennale, a kind of community emerged of people who saw themselves somehow as these anti-art people who are not only sick of the way that the establishment does things, but also of various types of alternative establishments do things. And out of that, we sort of returned back to music, which is where we started. And we created a queer music label, what we call, with very quite straightforward political principles, which of course...
Interesting choosing of words.
Yeah, which of course was very bizarre for the people who knew what we were doing, because you were like, okay, now you're creating this. Are we supposed to see that as you actually mean it, or is that going to be 2 years down the line you will be like, haha, you all thought we created the feminist discourse, haha, no. So we've now found ourselves to this kind of boy cried wolf situation, where we are not sure if people actually believe what we're doing. So we've become the victims of our own non-sincerity in a way. Nevertheless, we are actually continuing this label. It has already 12 releases, and last April we organized a big event of performances and with various. This is us here performing as pairs, with various panels and so on, and discussions about creativity and music and performance and identity, and how the notion of political power can emerge through the languages of performance and music and so on. So this is a sort of place where we're not really exactly here as artists, but we're kind of here as curators. So we have this Jekyll and Hyde moment at the moment,
it's not like we have a clear answer what is the right way to do like the politics. It's just like something intuitive, I think, like that we think that this is important. And that motivates us to do it.
I guess there is no real answer in terms of what to choose, other than just to say, right now, I feel that I should do this.
Yeah.
And it fires back sometimes, because for example, he wrote this series of poems called Pokemon Poetry, which are all very, very, actually very, very heartfelt and emotional, personal, queer-leaning, I would say, poetry to do with being inspired by various Pokemon characters. And I created a series of lieder, kind of Schubertian, sort of like piano and mezzo-soprano lieder to go with that. And it was really difficult for people to like, oh, that's actually quite an emotional work that you're doing there. How come you're interested in that? We didn't think you're these sort of people. And that kind of proves our point that, you know, it's even when you're saying that we don't really have an identity, that is by itself a kind of identity that you will get out of it. So right now we're in this process of, you know, what really is the result of refusing to have a kind of identity when it goes to politics and personal expression and so on. And of course we go back and forth between you know, the sort of self-critiquing meta states and a kind of embodiment, really. But I think what is important for us is that we don't lose the sight of both, you know, so it never actually ever becomes conceptual art, really. Yeah. It never actually becomes something which is totally distanced. Okay. Do you have anything else to say?
Not really.
That's it. Thank you.
I drank money.
So, what about questions? Well, we can look at us in under the beautiful prime power. Should I have a bit of light?
Yes.
Go on. It's a little bit difficult to present a project which calls itself non-self-defeating and then asking for questions.
Is it? I mean, obviously it is.
Sophia, do you have any questions?
You really mean it now that we can pose questions?
Yeah, I mean, should I I mean, I like that, the fact that, you know, they're not sure when the performance ends.
It never ends.
Sure, it never ends. So now the light is on the audience.
Don't break the light, it's expensive.
Yeah. So you have to actually ask us a question. I don't know to what extent we actually spoke so much about what we do, but we didn't somehow find it that important to say, oh, we might make a song, or we might make a video game, or we might make, we might print pillows. That's an artwork he hates.
The highlight of our career.
We printed things on pillows and we sent it to Vistaprint, and then we just have it for people to sit down, and he hated that.
But many years later.
But years later, someone said,
art theorist,
I
very famous one.
Yeah, I remember that work with the pillows, and I was like, yes. So, you know, I mean, I don't know. It's we can give you a lot of examples. Like we made a work which was called the 100 Worst Greeks, where we took various photocopies of actual people and we were nailing them on the wall. And it was a mixture of some.
One of them actually attended the biennial.
Yeah, one of them actually saw it. Two of them actually saw it.
Two of them.
Yeah. And they saw themselves in the 100 worst. And it was a mixture of some really obvious people and some really thornily non-obvious people, and that caused quite some discussion. One person told us that we're even worse than Plato, which was a very nice kind of insult. Another work we've done is we've created this viral video.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Which talks about how Greeks have DNA inferiority. So we have this scientist who describes why there is a problem in the DNA of Greeks, and that's why all the problems are happening. And of course, it had 20,000 hits in one day, and they said they're gonna sue us, and and who's this person? And they started also bringing up all kinds of conspiracy theories, like that if you actually look at the lips of the scientist, she's not really saying the things that we hear, when in reality there was no dubbing. She was just an actress, so that's okay, So that these all sorts of things that we've done, which kind of agitate people, and then sometimes things that we do that are sort of cute, like the Pokemon poetry thing. Of course, there's always a question of a playful dialectic between, do they mean it, do they not mean it, is it supposed to be taken aesthetically, is it supposed to be taken as a comment on art, what exactly is this?
But I remember that in a particular instance when you were insisting on the conceptual aspect, there was a friend of ours who was offended. He was like, but I had emotions about this work, you cannot take it away and just say that it's so we had to reconsider that. Yeah,
we made, when was it, 2 years ago, we made a series of songs. We made an album called Flower Remedies. A lot of the things we do have to do with plants, but that didn't really come into the presentation at all today, other than this wonderful thing. We made a series of songs, 50 of them actually, 52 or 54, something like this, which were based on questionnaires. So we asked people to fill in a questionnaire, a mixture between, the questionnaire was sort of psychoanalytical questions and random things. Yeah. They had to answer these questions, and then we made a song based on that. So a lot of the times we actually took the answers and did something with them, but very often we just didn't follow the thing at all. We just thought, oh, that looks a little bit like this song. So then we matched it with a song that maybe we had already written, or we added a couple of words. So totally charlatan, kind of absolutely rubbish methodology, and then we gave them to the people, and the people were really moved. They were like, wow, that song totally speaks about me, and we were like, okay, that's good. It's great that it does. I mean, we never necessarily told them, well, they were kind of written before, and we sort of matched it with what you had, or in some cases, for example, there was one person whose answers annoyed us, so we just gave them a song that we didn't like. So we would do things like that, but they all really were moved, and they thought, oh, this is, I can see why they're doing, kind of work with people, because they really
mean it.
They mean it, and they have this understanding. So it's a little bit, you claim to be a psychoanalyst, you are one sort of thing.
Because the function is not a position.
Yeah.
Did you like that?
I like that.
Did you like that?
Do you have any comments or questions?
I have a question.
Okay, thank you.
Right. You were talking about all these strategies or methodologies of escaping identification, like over-identification and Leibach and so on. I was just wondering if maybe the most successful strategies to escape identification simply cannot be identified, and maybe the most successful people, all those people who really escaped identification, are simply not known to us because we didn't identify them as people being successful in escaping identification. So maybe the most successful, attempt to escape it is that nobody will recognize it. Nobody will realize it.
No, I personally disagree.
Go on.
I mean, okay, I will go a little bit psychoanalytic.
Go a little bit psychoanalytic.
So, For example, Lacan in the ethics seminar, he says that the whole idea that we need to proclaim that the king is naked is false, because there is no such thing as the truth, the non-identification. Lacan instead suggests that we need to. He brings this example from a comedy that someone says, "Oh, this woman under her clothes, she's naked. That's so scandalous." And that's the essence of truth for Lacan, that you can never escape this kind of the concealment of truth. We can never actually, in a way I agree that we don't know those people, but I would say they don't exist. So it's a constant, we need to believe that there is a possibility to escape of this identification process, but it's not really a thing. That's what I'm saying.
So they can't really be successful examples because they don't exist. The
concealment of those examples is what makes sense.
But it's an interesting point. I mean, the notion of non-existing, if you remember, we were at the beginning, we were quite interested in that, in terms of concealing, and we were interested in the notion of, appearing and disappearing and stuff like that, if you remember.
No, I mean, on a personal note, like the quest for non-existence is a real thing, organizes our lives. I don't know, like if you want to have like a really intense BDSM session and someone's like fucking you and like hitting you so hard that you don't exist anymore for a moment, that's something that
here you go, psychoanalysis and BDSM.
Something I'm
on
interested,
a Thursday
I'm
afternoon.
Interested in. I believe that you can have those moments of this like total disintegration. I believe that I maybe had a glimpse of it. So in a way, I organize my life around this fantasy that this might exist. But also, I accept the fact that this might be a fantasy.
I mean, Artaud would probably respond that the delving right into the unconscious, the diving into the ecstatic moment is enough to completely dissolve identity. But I think for us it's quite difficult, because I think
it's hard to be like this kind of romantic in 2015.
Yeah, I mean, for example, you die, and what happens with your Facebook profile?
Oh, that's.
I mean, I think that's kind of all these traces. It's just very, very difficult. So it's quite difficult to say that you can destroy your own identity in 5 easy ways as it used to be. It used to be easier.
It used to be so much easier.
Just
take drugs and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and now it's your identity is kind of all over the place. So
I have all these yuppie friends that they take drugs and they take these remedies and they don't even have calm downs. It's disgusting. Okay, that might be a bit.
Your yuppie friends.
Not yuppie, but yuppie in the aspiration.
Other questions?
Or maybe
I could go on.
Please.
Come back.
I'm just wondering if it was really easier before, because back in the day, Scott had all the records, and like your Facebook profile was sort of like a celestial archive, and God knew everything about it, and he wrote down every single bad deed that you did. So he kept the records, and now it kind of shifted to Mark Zuckerberg. So first it was God who had all the traces under his control, under his supervision. Now it's the Californian neo-gods. So maybe it didn't change so much. That's more common. There's a question.
Should we be theological?
I was wondering, because you talked about this concealment of the truth, like this unavoidable concealment. And I'm always wondering if it hasn't become a sort of folkloristic thing. Everybody's talking about the truth is concealed, which makes it very easy for capitalists and dictators to create their own truth and install them, because truth is always hidden. So can this, like the theory, not be used for the power you talked about at the beginning?
But I mean, if we talk about the Christian theology, God died on the cross. He wasn't that great after all. That's my answer.
That's your answer to religion.
No, it's a really sophisticated answer actually, but you can't follow it.
I mean, we could probably open a theological debate.
It's the question about the possibility of escaping this totalitarian otherness. I don't know, that is God or that is technology, and how can you do it since it's everywhere, it's everything, every movement, every communication you have. But I believe, and it's connected to the Christian intervention in the world history, that the God died. That's very important because it opens up this possibility for new philosophical reflection on subjectivity that allows for a doubt of another that is omnipotent and omnipresent. So in a way,
so we're talking really between Nietzsche and Facebook.
Yeah,
that's when it was easy.
I would love.
Before Nietzsche is difficult. After Facebook is also difficult. That's the only good period.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Because actually in your work, also you hate methodology, but you also have one, or you love methodology. You have always done this hate-love relationship to methodology, and then at the same time you try to escape identification or some points of identification, which actually to me identification is like giving definitions, define yourself, define something else, identify with, disidentify with, and so on and so on. But is it in your interest somehow to escape also definitions, or or because you also when you have references from the art context and you have references from political context, you have different kinds of references and definitions that they all mix in your map. Maybe you can show your map again, from the
the map, yeah.
And I'm wondering how you deal with that, because at the end of the day you have different kind of smaller or bigger identifications, and you continue playing with that.
But
invite other people to.
I think the essentially, which kind of relates to the previous question. I think the notion of escaping identity by entering a sort of non-existent paradigm, by entering an ecstatic moment, I think it's a little bit naive, personally.
Yeah.
I think.
And also, on the other side of the spectrum, the idea that you can be this intellectual that decides what kind of identification you want to have, it's also it's not realistic.
We are. It's clear that we could, for example, just delete all that and just write on top psychoanalysis. It's very simple. It would be very simple because it's that's the essence, I guess, of our work. This notion of the conscious, not conscious, this decided, not decided. Who decides? Agency. What have we decided? Who has the agency of decisions?
And also,
but I think there is some. Your question is interesting because we do like to choose things. Yeah, I think that's what actually makes it kind of a bit more. That's our kind of really tricky thing, that we choose things and we believe in them as well. It's not like we actually, we're not nihilists in any way. It's not like we don't believe in things. It's just that in one project we might believe firmly on something, and in another project firmly on something else. But we believe in the things that we would choose each time, and we actually embody them fully. It's not like we kind of have this sort of, we're looking at it from a distance. Not really. It's just that we are allowing ourselves to be schizoid. I think this is the only way to put it. And allowing oneself to be schizoid while being an artist is a very tricky thing, because you can never form an identity, and therefore you can never actually be sellable. You can never actually be anything. So no one can actually go out and say, these people are that, they do that, and therefore we can sell them as that, or we can present them as that, or whatever, I mean, obviously we're here and you're presenting us and so on, so maybe there's space for everything, but it makes it very difficult when you're opening yourself to a sort of unexpected schizoid kind of situation. There is nothing that the two of us would discuss that we want to do that the other person would say, absolutely no, this is not FYTA. There is nothing that we aren't. We are possibly everything that we might decide that we want to be on any given day.
But this doesn't mean, to my perception, that you at the same time you relativize.
No, we don't relativize at all.
This would be like maybe a misunderstanding or understanding.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, how would you respond to that?
We don't relativize at all. I don't think we relativize. And I think the how do you respond to that is the fact that you have to take every moment of our creative existence as a given moment. You cannot see our whole work as a continuum. Because the moment you're starting to put things in a continuum, then it doesn't make sense any longer. But that's the good thing. That's what we think is a good thing, that it doesn't make sense any longer, because then we're really making justice to everything that we are. Because one day you want to be really cuddly, and the next day you want to be an asshole. And it is like this, and everybody is like this. It's just that we are told...
Some people are good.
Some people are always good. No, nobody's always good, really.
The fascists.
They're always good. Right. So I think this is the difference. There's and something that we do in our record label as well, which puzzles people at the moment very much, is that we would it takes that to a further step of curation, and we would curate, for example, an artist or a group which is extremely heavy and dark and so on, and then the next release would be something incredibly silly. So they cannot really say, what is this label? What is this label interested in? What sort of music do they present? And what kind of, are they happy people or are they sad people? It's sort of beyond that. And it's this idea that, from one to the next, you can kind of just basically both create a very complex puzzle of what does it mean to be a creative, but also make, most of all, make justice to how we feel. And this is, I would want to say that, I don't know to what extent you actually feel it, but we have a really good time. I mean, we argue tones, but we have a really good time creating things. We really actually have a good time. It's a continuous conceptual struggle for many things. And chaos very often, especially when we have to do a lot of different things. But it is essentially something that we like doing, and I think this is central, because the moment that we start thinking, should we do that, or is that not going to be FYTA enough, then I think we have to stop. And we've already found ourselves a couple of times in this. For example, after the biennial, we weren't really very happy on many accounts. That's because over-identification won, and we had become the monsters that we were afraid that we might become, and we argued with a lot of people, and we lost friends and so on. It really got full on Artodian, like living the nightmare. So it was it's interesting how it can also be dangerous to kind of identify so much with nothing also. But overall, I would say that the only reason why we do this is because we like it, really. So it has to continue like this. We have to continue kind of entertaining each other. Like usually we might find ourselves in a train and a new work kind of comes up because, we
like trains.
We like trains. And so, something like someone scribbles something, or he sends me an SMS and like a new work finds itself like this. I had never, before we met, I had never actually worked in a creative duet before. I was in a band, but it was a different kind of situation. And I can say that, if you find someone to work with, it's great. So,
oh my God, that's a practical suggestion.
I think it is a practical suggestion, and you know what? I think there used to be more more art. I don't know. Should I call it collectives? Because collectives starts to pose new question of what does a collective mean. But more non-individual artists, and I think this is something that has faded. And I don't want to sound hippie, clearly after this presentation, but I think maybe it's something we've sort of lost, and maybe we should look into. Especially after having done a PhD for many years and seeing what does it mean to struggle so hard with one's own self in terms of defining things. Sometimes having the ability to just call him and he just says, well, no, because it's like this. And then I'm like, yeah. And so that's just very comforting. It's very comforting. So
it's too comforting.
It's too comforting. It's too comforting. So
careful.
But the ultimate question of what that is, and if that is of any value, I don't think is necessarily, don't think is necessarily such a central question. I think they often reduce us to a kind of anti-art meta spectacle, basically. But we're okay with that.
I thought you would dispute that.
No, I think it's.
I would like to hear you try.
No, I think it's okay for me. If they think, they're just doing their thing where they're making fun of art. I don't think it's like this. But even if they read it like this, it's okay. After all, I prefer trolling art than making art. So on that note, I think. Yes, question.
Is it just it doesn't sound like it's just an artistic propaganda, like this not wanting to get pinned down to an identity or not find yourself caged in an identity? Like, is it possible to do that without I'm just I have to find my question again. Like, without being personal, unpredictable.
You can be as personal as you want.
Erratically maniac.
I think that's.
Does it affect your personal life?
It's the other. It's like a circle of kind of things, I guess. We wouldn't choose this methodology if we weren't these kind of people, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, actually, that's the which the answer to your question would be yes, but it's the other way around. It's not like we started making this work and then we became kind of schizoid personalities. It's more rather than the other way around.
No, to be honest, there was this period of my life I was valuing humility, and you were like, but I know that's bullshit and blah blah blah, but it was okay, yeah, it's bullshit. I'm not a humble person. So.
I think we already had a lot of doubts about the notion of a continuous identity before we met each other, and then when we met each other, we kind of exactly explained to each other, filled all the gaps of how identity is a problematic concept and how, the continuous daily dismantling of identity should be what someone should struggle for, and and then it worked like this. Now I don't know for how much longer it will be, and if you are getting into the sort of autobiographical way, it's not always easy either. So for example, if we create, when we created this one artwork and we had death threats, it wasn't nice, and the moment you start going into that territory, we are also vulnerable.
Yeah.
But
and also I don't know if we're willing to push it till the very end. After this video, for example, they threatened to
they threatened to sue and so on, and we were a little bit worried because it was also our friend who was involved, but I don't think we were ready to push it. So for example, if when we did the Biennale and we had lots of anti-Greek stuff, we were a little bit worried that Golden Dawn, their extreme right wing, might come and break it or something. I don't think we would be ready to go as far as to start an opera while they're inside the house. So I don't think we are that borderline yet, at least.
Which might be a disappointment for our audience.
Yeah, of course. I think it is a disappointment.
It should be like a disappointment. I would feel so deceived.
Cheated.
Yeah.
Cheated. Yeah, but it's a really valid question. Yeah, and especially when we were at the Biennale, it was really obvious that there were moments in which even friends of ours who were there were like, now are they? What's going on? Are they themselves? Are they themselves in a bad day? Are they the character, or are they the characters
in a bad
day? You know what? Which exactly consciousness level are we on? You know, so it did happen.
That's what I mean. Is it not sometimes problematic in personal life?
I think that
you can separate it.
You're right. I think the way we work this problem out is that we don't actually make so much. So
we also have like long periods.
We have like long periods where we don't do something. I think that's what happens with people like, you know, with the poets and Artaud and so on. They go insane because they immerse themselves so much into it that, you know, they kind of lose focus.
I'm sure there are other reasons in people's lives.
No, I was talking about, you know, the romantic artist idea, the poets and so on. You know, that, you know, they immerse themselves, you know, whatever, Artaud or Jack Smith or whoever you want to take that, or Debord or whoever, you know, it kind of spirals and, you know, and sort of like becomes a kind of obsession and so on. And I think the way we work around this is by just not, you know, also not spending much time when we work on something. This is really elemental, really elemental. You know, we might do 10 different things. We might have to do 10 different things, but we will spend like 1 hour on each one.
I mean, come on,
from the time that it starts becoming.
That's idiosyncratic. It's not methodological. Don't present it as methodological.
No, I think we've lost the space between idiosyncratic and methodological. Anyway, we are in the autobiographical area anyway. But generally, what we do, is we try and not spend too much time on something. And also sometimes we, what's the word? We just improvise. Yeah. So there's a large number of, and a large amount is just improvisation. So I think that it would be scary what you describe if we allowed it to spiral conceptually more and more and more. But we generally don't do that. Yeah, and I think embodiment is also quite good. So, for example, today we've been speaking a lot, but actually, in the things that we organize, we dance, and people meet and have sex and this and that. So it actually, the embodiment and the kind of getting together aspect is actually quite important. So I think when you think a lot, then you go and have sex, and then it clears. It's okay. That's my position.
If you don't want to have sex, it's fine.
It's fine, yeah. So we have obviously. I mean, I'm just saying my position.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Thank you. Any questions?
More questions or comments? Should they leave the stage?
We leave the stage. It's not a stage.
It's